Here is your reward.
You have a master's?
I was a university professor, like my father.
Why do you teach driving?
For a better job, I would have to take off my turban, shave off my beard.
People think I look dangerous.
But this is how I know who I am, and here it is too easy to forget.
Do you ever get back for visits?
I can never go home to India. It's part of political asylum. I couldn't get to see my dad before he passed away last year. I missed my mom's funeral too, but then I was in prison there.
And that was a clip from Learning to Drive, and I'm very excited to say I'm joined by its star, Sir Ben Kingsley. Sir Ben, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for taking the time out to speak to us. How are you?
Absolute pleasure. It's a lovely film to be able to talk about.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to talking about it myself. It's modern-day New York. We have two intriguing souls thrown together in the form of your character, Darwan, and Patricia Clarkson's character, Wendy. What can you tell us about the journey that these two go on?
I think you put it beautifully in that it is two people who perhaps would never meet, but through a series of extraordinary coincidences, they are thrown together by fate. And because each one of them, in a sense, has a loss that they're dealing with, she has just extricating herself from a bad, what she thought was a loving relationship that has turned out to be, it's deceived her, and he has deceived her, and she's heartbroken. And my character, Darwan Singh, is a Sikh who's living in exile from India as a political refugee. So he has lost his homeland and everything that was dear to him, and she has lost her homeland in the form of her husband, her lover. So the two losses combine not to negate each other, but to provide succor, wisdom, windows opening into life. She is a very fierce, independent woman from the world of publishing in New York, and imagine that's a really tough life for anybody. So she is a great liberated Western woman, and he is a Sikh from the Punjab in India with a very different background, very different code of ethics, but somehow she teaches him about her version of being a woman, and he teaches her about his version of being a man. And as you say, they are thrown together by fate, and the results from the film, from the relationship, are very life-enhancing.
And an element of that fate, I suppose, comes from the fact that Darwan is a driving instructor. So they've got this reason to be together, but also a reason for one to perhaps feel more nervous than the other at times. And it struck me as I was watching the two of you in the car. You know, my own driving instructor was a nightmare. I used to stop off at his ex-girlfriend's houses, pick up things, have arguments with people, and then jump back in the car. Darwan is very sage. You know, he never says, "Oh, look, there's a green light, go." He says, "You know, you have the light." He
Right.
brings strength at times to, or lets Wendy see the strength in herself. And it struck me, there's a lot going on here that seems to be about control, having control, losing control. Mm-hmm. There's various status shifts between the two characters, and I wondered how much you and Patricia talked about.
Well, Ben, I think
shifts.
this is very interesting because so many people will get so many different layers from the film, and the layer of control is one that we never debated. We actually stayed very much within our own characters, within the bubble of each character, because not only do Darwan Singh and Wendy have very different rhythms, also as actors we have to bring very different rhythms to our performances. And although wisdom has to be imparted, what the actor has to do is not to catch the other person's rhythm. So in a sense, I found that my element of control as an actor was to stay within that remarkably unique Sikh silhouette. And dear Patricia's discipline as an actor is to stay within her more frenetic, frenzied, frayed New York silhouette. So I think that maybe that element of control in our performances helped colour the element of control in our driving. But you are quite right. He's called a driving instructor, but he does invite her to participate. It's always an invitation, which I think is a very gracious way of teaching anybody. The backstory, he was a university, he says in the film, he was a university professor in the Punjab, and therefore there is that in his DNA, because his father also was a university professor, there is that genuine will to teach, to guide, to impart knowledge, whatever wisdom he thinks he has or may have, so that, like so many people who come from one culture to another, you have your brain surgeon, working as a lift operator in Saks Fifth Avenue, but still that person operating the lift would still have the quality of the ferryman. The driving instructor still has the quality of the ferryman, that eternal character who ferries you across a river, and you're a different person when you got on the boat from when you get off his boat. So he's like the eternal ferryman as well, Darman Singh.
Yeah, I really felt that watching it. On the surface, it could easily be a film dismissed. I suppose in the States they might call it a mom movie. And I didn't get that from it at all. Sometimes
Good.
you have the fear that it might be, this is a first world problems type of movie, but there's so much going on beneath the surface.
It's very hard to corner it into a genre.
Exactly.
It's very difficult to categorize it. And I'm very glad you brought that up, because it is, however caringly and with great affection and loyalty, it's presented on a poster, because one has to say something.
Of course.
It's a lot bigger than the poster. It really is. It's a low-budget, small film set in a small vehicle in a very special part of New York, but sometimes the specific manages to impinge on the universal, and I think hopefully the film has done that.
Before I became an actor, I worked for 8 years with refugees, many of whom were seeking political asylum for one reason or another.
How interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of our focus was on trying to get their qualifications from their own countries recognized
Immense
over
skills,
here.
yes.
Really,
yes.
really difficult. But
Yes.
that was one thing that drew me in immediately. The other thing, being of mixed heritage, I love it when brown people pop up on screen. I'm always on the lookout for them. And there's without getting too heavy within the film, there's comments on racism, there's comments on immigration, political asylum. And obviously, you've got that culture clash on the surface. But were these all things, because, like you say, it's a low-budget movie. I know Patricia spent a long time trying to get it off the ground. Were these all things that helped you get involved in the project?
I love to take a leap away from myself and into another different, uniquely different silhouette. And sometimes I have the opportunity. And I found that to jump away from me into that wonderful silhouette of the Sikh, who is descended from and still is the ancient archetypal noble warrior. And it's very rare to find that in the 21st century without being misogynistic or bringing prejudices to it one way or the other. So to jump from that into his own sense of the Sikh way of righteousness, of doing good, of helping the other, of hospitality, of courtesy. I'm not saying that I'm none of those things, but as an actor, I love to hit that very specific target. So it was that I found thrilling. All the rest, of course, when one is exploring him, and we had some wonderful Sikhs in New York on set helping me to put my turban on, and even being with them by osmosis, you think, gosh, these are wonderful guys. So it was thrilling to put that unique cultural ethnicity and dignity on the screen.
But also you managed to portray the little chinks in the armor as well. He's not perfect, and we see these little moments. It's the tiniest moments in your face, in your tone, the cracks in your voice. We start to see these little almost vignettes of a man who's struggling with that exact thing of being in a world where Sikhs aren't the majority culture, and we see these little imperfections.
You're leading me towards addressing exactly what you're saying. Our director is Isabel Croizette, and our director operated the camera. She was the eye of the film. It is her choice in the editing room, as well as Thelma Schumacher, who is also a great female editor. So you have a great female director, great female editor,
A female writer.
and a major female producer, and the short story by a woman. Let me just say this. The lovely moments of vulnerability that you have just pointed out would not have been in the film were it not for Isabel being behind the camera. She films male vulnerability beautifully. And there are not many directors who can put male vulnerability on the screen without the character losing any integrity. And I think that is a great achievement on behalf of our lovely woman director, and I wish there were more of them,
And-
who was able to capitalize on as an actor, exactly what you're saying, opening up my armor. And she filmed the chinks, and that's wonderful.
That's incredible. I mean, and then it's so rare to even hear of a director holding
They
the
might have
camera.
been the moments you love might have been on the editing floor.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So tell me this. I'm of mixed parentage, and one thing I always found as an advantage from a very young age was I seemed to be able to switch in different social situations quite easily. You know, having a quite raucous Caribbean side and having a similarly complex working class white British side. I always found the two cultures very, very different, but I sort of developed a chameleonic quality that I think has informed my work as an actor. And I wondered, I mean, obviously we're from completely different worlds, but I wondered if there's anything from your heritage that you think helps with your performance.
I think what you're doing beautifully is describing our normal. It is what is normal to you and I. And I therefore find it very difficult to step outside of my childhood, which was a mixed marriage. Well, it's part Jewish, part Northamptonshire stock, and part Ismaili Khoja Gujarati. So my normal was perhaps an ability to quite swiftly and skillfully and honestly, Ben, effortlessly adapt from one situation to another. So that is our normal, and I think we're very privileged, and it's a thrilling way to go through this extraordinary world right now.
Well, that gives me so much confidence for the future. Thank you.
I don't think you need any confidence whatsoever. You're a charming man.
Thank you very much. What are we going to see you in next?
I think the next will be a wonderful film called Collide, which was made in Germany a couple of years ago, and it's getting released now, and it's a thriller.
So Ben Kingsley, thank you so much for your time.
Great
It's been a
pleasure, Ben.
Cheers.